and it's not fair and it's horrible. You look at all the tech companies today and it's like the first role to go is enablement. And that is a critical role in an organization that currently is unsupported by data. Well, what if we can fix that? My God.
Welcome back to another episode of the Revenue Reimagined podcast. This is an episode that I feel is like a year in the making. It's one of my all-time favorite people. We are stoked to have with us Christina Brady, who is the co-founder and CEO of Luster, head of community at Women in Sales, host of Taking the Lead podcast, comes from Glassdoor, Groupon, and probably more importantly than anything, lives in my favorite city of all time with the best food in the country. Christina, welcome to the show. Chicago.
Oh, the highlight of that entire thing was, of course, Chicago.
You know, I was there last week.
Were you?
You don't, because then I'm going to be like, why didn't you text me?
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
I was there last week.
What did you
next time?
What were you here for?
So my wife's family lives there. We come up a few times a year. We did a couple of really cool restaurants. We went to a new place in Fulton Market called Luster. That is awesome. If you have not been, stunningly beautiful as well.
So many flowers everywhere.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the flowers.
It was a good place.
I
think I'll step out. You guys can have a podcast on Chicago.
Peace out, Dale.
There's a tension between the two of you. It's palpable. And before the end of the show, we're going to go down to it. We're going to figure it out.
Awesome. Christina, thank you so much for joining. I know we've been trying to get this on the calendar for a little while, but you're a busy woman. You've been doing a lot of interesting stuff, and you just started up a new company, Luster. So tell us a bit, like we always want to hear from founders that origin story. Like, why did you create it? You must have like some emotional connection because crazy people start companies. So
that's right. I'm a lunatic. No, it's maybe, I don't know. Ask people who know me. You know, it's interesting because I always felt like I wanted to do this, but the fear of failure, the inability or difficulty for a lot of women founders to get things like VC funding, it's such an uphill battle. And for me, you know, what's somewhat unique is I'm the breadwinner of my family. I don't come from any element of wealth. I haven't been a part of these really big exits where I've had a windfall of money and I can just be like, listen, I do happen to have a pile of cash, Ebenezer Scrooge style, in my guest room. I run in there and roll around in it. And you know what I should do is like start a company with it. So there really is that you're starting from pretty much ground zero. And you know, I had been going through the very traditional W-2 experience, right? I got my start.
Experience is a very good word.
Yes. I got my start, 17 years ago as an account executive, full cycle AE. When I say full cycle AE, I mean like an actual landline phone and a stack of paper leads, and you just call through them, right? It was horrible, but you learn a lot doing that, and working my way up to frontline manager, second line leader, third line leader, up to C-suite, and working at various incredible tech companies. There's a lot of gaps that I felt. And one was in really working for a dynamic and incredible leadership at scale and how you can create that. I've experienced working for really wonderful leaders, and I've experienced working for leaders that were not so effective. And the impact that has on employees is insurmountable. I see you guys laughing. It's like, should we have a drink?
I mean, we could turn this into like an 8-hour show.
Should we just have therapy? We probably all need it after some of our collective experiences. But so that was one gap, was what does it actually take to up level and really allow your managers and your leadership to shine? And the second piece was working the last 5 to 8 years in the enablement tech space and building learning and development for go-to-market teams. One of the biggest gaps that I would consistently hear, no matter how good the training was, no matter how good the coaching was like, people can't ingrain it. We just have to like retrain all the time. And we don't know what the skill gaps are until they hit and impact the customer. And we're not hitting our numbers and we don't know why. And everyone just says it's more training, but we just trained everybody and we don't know what to do. And I was like, why can't anybody solve this? And so this had been something floating around in my mind. And, I think being honest about founder journey is so important. I had a relationship with a phenomenal VC firm called High Alpha. I had done some speaking for them.
Out of Indy, right?
In Indy, yeah.
Yeah.
I had done some advising and consulting for some of their portfolio companies. And they have a studio model similar to Y Combinator, where they have ideas for companies and they go and see if they can find a CEO to co-found with them, hand them the keys, a check for a couple $1,000,000, and just kick in the butt and say, go, right? And so they contacted me and said, we're playing in this AI space and trying to figure out what is the art of the possible in terms of how sales teams can be AI powered. And I said, well, you know what I don't think we need another one of is like another AI co-pilot. I was like, so if that's your idea, there's 300 of them, go pick one and invest in that. And they said, well, no, it's more around conversational intelligence and utilizing generative AI to help salespeople role play with like replicas of customers. And I had a mind melt moment on the phone with them. And I was like, oh my God, are you talking about productizing practice? Are you talking about building simulations for salespeople like golfers have and like airline pilots have and like NASCAR drivers have? And like, are you talking about actually helping people at work learn the way that we learn outside of work consistently by enabling scalable practice with AI? What? And I had this mind melt moment, right? So
is that the sales pitch, by the way? Because I love that passion. Like that, like if that's how you get on the phone with the customers, I'm sold. Where do I sign up for this shit?
Wait till you tap me and ask me to start talking about predictive enablement. I'm going to fly out. I'll just be gone. I'll blow out of this thing. And I'll be like, well, that was the last time anybody heard of Christina, but she said some good things. So she said a couple things that people like sometimes. So, but really it was that, right? And after a couple months of exploring, and they were of course talking to other people, it was this like, I have to co-found this business. I have to lead this business. My entire career, without me realizing it, has been leading me to do this. And I spent months firmly believing that I couldn't do this and I didn't have the chops, because I don't look like a typical CEO and co-founder. And I don't just mean because I'm a woman and a mother. I mean because I'm not a product person. I'm not an engineer. I'm not the person behind the curtain who's like, I can do this. I'm the go-to-market gal that's trained 10,000 salespeople in her life. Like that's not a typical, especially in the AI tech space, that is not a typical founder profile. And so I got in my head about that until I was like, wait, I can hire those people.
Exactly.
So here we are.
So I love the fact that you're not the typical founder, right? You're not a white male, number one, like we addressed that. You have tattoos, you have piercings, like all the things that I think historically weren't acceptable. I mean, I'm tatted up myself that now are. But what you just touched on is very true. Most founders, early founders, have that deep, deep technical background. That's and right. They go hire us or someone, a tech or a sales co-founder, but they kind of run the show, if you will. Talk to me about the difference, because you've worked for companies that have deep, deep technical founders. Now you're leading a company that doesn't. What's the difference in how you build that company and the overall aura of that company? Because I'd imagine it's very different coming to work for Luster and Christina Brady than, Bob's AI with Bob the engineer.
Yeah.
Nothing against Bob.
Bob the builder.
Bob
the builder.
Bob the builder's like, he's cool. We love him.
Yeah, nothing against Bob. Bob's great.
Nothing against Bob, but we're going to be better than Bob, because at the end of the day, you should ask my team what they think about working with me, because I'm a little bit of a spitfire, right? But that's part of it. But it's the way that I approach building a company. And I think the difference between somebody who is very engineer and super product focused being at the helm is you're focused so much on the art of the possible of what the product can do. And one of the correlations it was drawn. So our lead advisor at Luster, his name's Kyle Himmelwright. He's the head of RevOps at Pinecone. He's absolutely brilliant. And we were talking about product vision. He said, you got to be careful that you don't build the car that can go 400 miles an hour, because while that's cool, you can't drive that anywhere. He's like, so you build this amazing machine that nobody can use and nobody can drive. It's cool. No one can use that. And so I think a lot of people who are product and engineering, like CTOs that turn founder, it's all, I can build these amazing things into the product, and so I am going to, versus for me, I actually care less about that, and I care more about the problems that I need to solve for my end users. Like, I care about creating an experience that's going to help salespeople, leaders, and enablers be better. and to actually expose enablement ROI. So for me, I approach it as the people I'm serving, right? Sales reps, CSMs, anybody customer focused on the front end, managers, enablers, learning and development folks. They spend their entire careers working their butt off to build amazing training and enable people to coach. And then they spend every single day having to justify their own existence with fluffy subjective data. And it's not fair and it's horrible. You look at all the tech companies today and it's like the first role to go is enablement. And that is a critical role in an organization that currently is unsupported by data. Well, what if we can fix that? My God. So I'm focused more on, yes, this is a tool where you can create AI practice simulations and skill drills. Cool. But who cares? What care is like, what does that mean? And so my focus is one on what problem am I solving? And we got to go function over form every single day with that one, even though it's going to be pretty because it's me. I got to build pretty things. And then the second is I'm a culture and values first type of builder, right? So I'm thinking about building a company that's not only going to delight the end users, but people spend time and they don't know how much of it they have in their life. And they're going to come work at my company to build my vision with me. I'm going to make that a beautiful experience for you. I'm going to build a culture that takes care of people and celebrates diverse thoughts and diverse people. And I'm going to try, I'm going to try, because nobody sets out to build a terrible company. So like, I'm going to try really hard to do this the right way for the people who are giving me their time and their passion. And so I think those are some of the differences or just where I'm focused. And then I hired a brilliant co-founder CPO with a highly technical background. And she's my counterpart to that. So while I'm focused on building all those things, she's like, and now I'm going to go build a beautiful and delightful product. And so that's the 1-2 punch.
That is super inspiring. And I think building culture from the beginning, like that is, I think that's where a lot of people fail. Like because they are technical, they're not really sure how to build that culture. But I'm curious, what are like 2 or 3 things you're going to do as a founder to build that culture? Like, what's the foundation? And it's not ping pong tables and big cakes. What's that?
Oh, come on. I work for a company that I shit you not. Sorry to interrupt. Dale's going to say I do it all the time. Mm-hmm. I shit you not. When we were talking to candidates, the recruiters were instructed to talk about the ping pong tables, the beanbag chairs, and the wine on tap. Swear to God. Couldn't make this shit up if I tried.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, you listed off some of the companies that I've worked at. Like it was the heyday.
It might have been the same company. No, I'm kidding.
Might have been the same place, right?
Wasn't.
It was not, but like it also was. You know, like they were all kind of. And I remember that too, where it was like, make sure when you're walking candidates through the office that you walk them through the game room. And I was like, let me get this straight. Not really a question, but a comment. So you want people to like not work and be in the game room? And they're like, well, no, but we have it. I'm like, right. So, okay. When is it acceptable for like my reps, for example, to be playing ping pong versus like being, they had nap pods. Let me tell you something. They had nap and people would sleep in them out in the open. I was like, you will never catch me just napping at work. So anyway, point being, I love that question. I will give you an example. It's not just talking about it; it's doing it. And so one of the thing that we did the day that we launched our demo and our website, in the morning before we hit the button, we did a values workshop. Me and my 2 co-founders. Because it was, yes, we are building this company, but what does it all mean? What do we value? What do we care about? And we sat together in a room and we did a workshop. And not only do I have my entire company handbook already built and my policies laid out and spending some real time equity on that, like making sure that I'm building out proper parental leave policies and holiday policies and making sure that I'm keeping in mind other cultures and folks that need to celebrate and, things that most companies just completely look over, like having Juneteenth off, everybody. Like little things like that, right? That you can do right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, it's like we started thinking through like, what are our values? And we came up with 4 core values. And one of them was we care for others. The next one is there's no box. We're not going to put ourselves in a box ever. We're going to celebrate like diverse creativity. The third one is we celebrate expertise at all levels. And that means I don't care what your role is at my company. You are a human being with experience and expertise. And I want to hear it. And it's just as your idea, just as valuable as mine, sometimes more, most of the time more, right? So can we celebrate the expertise of the people on the team and never make them feel like because of their role, they are lesser? That doesn't exist at Luster. And the last one that excited me was like, you should be scared And it's okay to be scared. If you're doing something at this organization and it doesn't make you a little scared, or it's not a little fear inducing, then like it's too easy, right? And so you might feel afraid sometimes. We're doing something brand new that's never been done, but you will never be alone when you are doing it. And so what do we do in the face of fear, right? What does bravery look like? And so those are the values that I want folks to live by. So some of the things are just, I mean, a lot of people look at that as the fluffy stuff. It's writing it down, and then it's living by it, and it's leading by example. Literally from day one, I have 2 co-founders, and I have a fractional contract team of maybe 20, 25 people, right? We are small, but every single person that has Luster on their resume needs to feel this way when they're working with us. And that's one of I view it as one of my core jobs right now.
The Luster people have to have some luster on their shine.
They gotta shine. They gotta be brilliant. That's right.
People buy from people. That's why companies who invest in meaningful connections win. The best part? Gifting doesn't have to be expensive to drive results, just thoughtful. Sendoso's intelligent gifting platform is designed to boost personalized engagement throughout the entire sales process. Trust me, I led sales for a Sendoso competitor, and I could tell you, no one does gifting better than Sendoso. If you're looking for a proven way to win and retain more customers, visit Sendoso.com. I love the core values, but more importantly, what you said about living it. I think a lot of companies, a lot of leaders throw some fancy shit up on a website. And this happens mostly with DEI more than anything else I've ever seen. But like some fancy values on a website, and then you get there and it's like, well, yeah, that's just for people to see. They'll never say that out loud, but no one actually lives and breathes their values. So the fact that that's so important, I love. I want to talk about assumptions a little bit. So we've all worked for various different startups. We know various different investors that put out a bunch of advice, maybe some, go-to-market experts on LinkedIn that put out a bunch of advice. And there's a lot of assumptions about, Christina, like, this is great. You're a co-founder, you're a CEO. Like, you got to do this. Make sure you don't do that. And like, you absolutely have to do this or you're going to fail. Without naming names, what are some of the assumptions that you just decided to say, fuck that, I'm ignoring this and doing it my way? Like, I'd love the top 1 or 2 that you're like, absolutely not.
I mean, one I would say is leading with me and who I am and encouraging my co-founders to do the same. So there's a difference between, like, there's this element of being buttoned up, right? Like, I'll give you an example. Most companies at this stage, and what I've been cautioned against is like, be careful launching things before they're ready, and be careful with your messaging. And like you have one shot to like launch this blah. And I'm like, bullshit.
Right.
Like,
you put it out there once and you're done forever.
Yeah. Like, right. So like, there's this idea of like, you got one shot. I was like, this is not 8 Mile. Okay.
I was going to try to find it and play it.
And like this idea of like, if you do this, you're going to fail. I'm like, good. I've never learned more than what I've learned when I've made a mistake or stepped in mud. And now that I've stepped in mud, I'm a superhero. You know why? Because now I can tell you how to not step in mud. So it's like, I embrace that fail forward mentality. And the other thing is, it goes back to one of the values, like no box. What worked for you, I love that worked for you. I love that journey for you so much, and I want you to talk about it. But what worked for you may not work for me. And I want to hear you, and I want to understand what you are saying, and I want to apply what I'm hearing to my own ecosphere. And I have a rule right now where when I have a crazy idea, which happens once a day, I will run it by at least 3 other people. Right. So that's the thing is like, I think you can be impulsive and you can be excitable, but it's like, look, I've got a really cool, crazy idea. I'm going to run it by a couple of folks, because if I look at the LinkedIn gurus, they would tell me not to do this, but like, I kind of feel like we should do it. Right. So then I go ask people and I tell them why. And I'm a big fan of try, and enable the human beings that exist in the world to help. Like, human beings, even the worst ones, are natural helpers. Like, when you see somebody carrying a bunch of stuff and they're like, whoa, whoa, wobbling, you're like, let me help. Like, even if you're a total asshole, you're like, whoa, let me help you with that. Right. So for me, it's, I'm doing something brand new. I am never going to pretend that I have acumen or expertise in an area that I do not. And I actually think that's rare, because I see a lot of people going on LinkedIn and speaking as an expert in something that they've never done, that they've never seen, and that they've never succeeded in. And I'm like, why would
They
you?
chat GPT it, baby.
Yeah, like why would you? What like faux expertise? I think gets you in a lot of trouble. And so for me,
Yeah.
the other thing that I do that I have no problem being like, I have no idea. I have no idea how to do that, right? Like I've never done that. I have no idea. I could take a guess. It's going to be worse than if you do it. So you should go do it, right? And I think there needs to be more people at the quote unquote top that are willing to be like, I don't know how to do that. I don't have the answer to that. Like that's fine.
Love
But
that.
that feels very scary for a lot of people.
That wasn't mud you stepped in, by the way. That was something else brown.
I mean, my
Anyway.
dog is brown, so half the time it really is.
So Christina, you've led a bunch of sales teams and you've probably evolved from like your infancy of leadership into like your full SVP, like go get 'em role. But now you're actually evolving into a CEO and co-founder of a company. How has your leadership evolved over that time? And can you give us an example of a challenge that you've faced as a leader, especially as a go-to-market leader, and how you addressed it?
There've been so many. I will say this. I have done things wrong more than I've done them right. But then when I do things right, I do them really, really right because of all the things that I've gotten wrong. And one of the things I like to think that I'm a very self-aware person. And so when I get something wrong, I want to be the first to identify it. Early on, I mean, I don't know that I would have wanted to work for Christina when I was first a manager. Like when I think back, I'm like, she was a little messy. In a sense of, in the absence of leadership training, which I did not have at the time, it was a lot of gut instinct. It was a lot of passion. It was a lot of desire to lead, but not really understanding what that looks like.
Yeah, because no one taught you, right? They're like, here, go lead this team. Like you're a great salesperson, but go lead this team.
You can do it. You've been hitting target. We just laid off a bunch of people and there's a team of 35 over 6 different territories that need a leader. And you seem like the person who should do that.
And you're like, holy shit.
I'm like, what? Is that an okay ratio? Is this just what it's like here? Okay. Like, you don't know, right? I was 24, like a baby. Nobody should have listened to me. Right. And I just remember feeling like, one, it was very obvious. I remember in particular, there was one point in time where there were 2 women managers and 40 male managers, right? And like we were the 2 girls and everybody else at the seat at the table all looked really exactly the same. And so the way that I took that was I felt really threatened by it. I felt really in my head about it. I felt like I have to prove myself in this room because I already know that I inherently am going to look weaker than everybody else. And honestly, I did. I can't tell you how many meetings I was at in this organization where while I was leading the top performing team at the organization and the CEO didn't know me by name and never looked at me when he was speaking about my team, right? So it's just like there is that sort of, and we've gotten better as a society, right? We're talking years ago. I don't want to say how many because I'm very young, but years ago. And so there was that of like, I was so in my head about the fact that I had to prove myself that I had to put on this really tough exterior. And I was terrified to say, I don't know. Because I was like, if I don't know, they're going to replace me with some dude who does. So I can't not know anything. I can't have any gaps. I can't have any vulnerabilities. I can't have people get to know me because I am nothing. I come from nothing. I come from 2 musician parents, a single mother. I come from having no money growing up. Like we were not even comfortable middle class growing up. I have a theater degree. I did improv performing. And now I'm sitting here. Oh my God, I know. And I'm sitting here now pretending to play corporate. Like I know what I'm talking about. The minute they understand that I am not qualified for this job, I'm going to lose it. And these thoughts just whirl around in your mind, right? Yeah. And they eat away at you. And that happened in my first leadership role. I had some incredible training and mentoring for years that really helped me understand, one, to embrace who you are and encourage other people to do the same, because that's how change happens. And what does it feel like to actually connect with somebody? And what does healthy work communication actually look like? And how do you embrace people who are different? And then I got really obsessed with the psychology of work communication. And I became an expert in things like disc analysis and Myers-Briggs and Dope Bird. And then I started training people on it, right? So then I was like, oh my God, the key to leadership is communicating with wonderful intent. The key to amazing leadership is living in radical candor and encouraging other people to do the same. And the key is being your own unique individual, so other people realize that it's okay to step in the light too. And so if you look at original manager Christina, so insecure, so terrified, so in her head. And me now, I live to elevate the people around me. I really do. I'm like, I'm going to surround myself with the smartest people in the world because they're going to make me look good. I'm not afraid now to say, I don't know. I do know what I do know. And I've learned to be confident in the right areas and say, this is my zone of genius, guys. I got this. And when it's not, I'm like, she's got this. Yeah. She has it. Right. So
I think that lane of genius is super interesting, right? It's something that people don't talk about enough. Like, where's your lane of genius? How can, and I think this is where leadership goes really wrong. You need to be able to like identify a lane of genius, run in that lane of genius. And like you said, if you don't know, or don't know how to do it, you find people that complement your lane of genius with what you need to make it successful. Because delegation is super important. Like, you can't do it all yourself. And I think the younger me, similar to the younger you, and probably Adam, like, you want to take it all on. You have this imposter syndrome. No one really told you, like, it's okay if you don't know. Like, if you don't know, good. Like, either go play around and step in the shit, or like, let me help you out. Cause like, either way is okay. And I think, you have children, and I think it's important to help them through that process as well. It's like, you want to do everything for them. However, you want to make sure that they're failing forward as well, because if they don't fail while you have guide rails around them, they're going to go fail outside of your house. And that's much more difficult to deal with.
I'm so guilty of this. And like, Dale, you and I have talked about this, right? Like, I'm not great at that with Zachary, who's my 13-year-old. It's this balance of like trying to overcompensate for mom and like wanting him to be happy, right? And realizing that sometimes a momentary unhappiness is for a greater happiness and a better quality of life. I can't be the savior. And it's funny because like, as a leader, I'm the first one who would be like, Christina, like, I'm happy to help you, but like, you need to try to figure this out first and come to me with solutions. Like, I'll strategize with you. Yeah. But like, as my kid, it's like, oh shit, I got to do this for you. I don't want you to be upset. And I'm getting better. Like, I didn't plug in his laptop the other night and it was dead this morning. And he's like, my laptop's dead. I'm like, well, then I guess you got a fucking problem at school today, don't you? You better hope your teachers have a charger.
Tough love right there.
So one last question, and then we'll get into a little rapid fire. But, as a founder in what I'll call new SaaS land, in old SaaS land being grow at all costs, go hire a bunch of people, doesn't matter, just go do what you got to do, right? And like, people are going to fix the problem. With new SaaS land of sustainability matters. How do you balance it though, right? Because you still have to go out there and get that growth. Like, you're brand new, you have some time, but you still got to go get that growth. But you can't just go burn through all your capital and hire 127 people. How do you balance growth and sustainability as a new CEO?
What's interesting is seeing it done wrong so many times is a way to learn what's right. Like, I've seen organizations where they experience a little bit of success and they go and take the funding they have and hire a bunch of people and blow it up. And then they've brought on a bunch of initial customers that are not their ICP, that do not get them closer to product market fit. And guess what? Those customers are noisy and they bark and they impact your product roadmap. And before you know it, you've built functions and features that are causing churn in 70% of your companies, but critical to retain 30% of your companies. And the 30% of companies that it's critical to retain are the original companies that you signed on. So you feel a sense of loyalty. And before you know it, your company fails. So it's like, and boom, boom, you're done. So it's interesting because for me, the big thing that I've come into this with is I have to serve my end user first. And what that means is I have to understand exactly what it takes in this product to do that, even at a small scale first. If I can get small wins with the product, then I can grow, it also means I have to say no to some customers.
Yeah.
And that right now, when I want to extend my runway as far as possible, and I have a customer that is like, we want this, we want to try this, we need this. And I'm looking at the boxes and going, you're not a great fit for our MVP, and you are not a great fit for what's coming up on our product roadmap. And the questions that you're asking in the sales process about, can you build this? Can you do this? Well, yeah, could we? Sure. Should we? Probably not. And so there is that I don't know that I would have the discipline to say no to the wrong customers right now if I hadn't seen what happens when you don't have the discipline to do that. So the first is discipline, even when it's really, really painful. And the second is really, really focusing on doing even just one thing really well and putting all of the resources there and not overselling it. I hear a lot of founders who oversell their MVP.
Yep.
They're talking about the version of the product that's going to be built in 2 years, and they're selling people on the vision now. And then guess what? Your product roadmap also gets messed up because you're no longer in control of it. So for me, it's really being clear with my early customers and my prospects. Here's what we are building right now, specifically for these types of organizations that are feeling these issues. And it will get broader. But unless you fit in there right now, then the product I'm building isn't going to serve you as best it could. And then guess what? I'm irresponsible to take your money. So we're being very careful about that piece and maniacally focusing and then looking at the data and what does the data tell us about what we build next? And our early customers that are product market fit for us, what do they want? And that can impact my product roadmap. So it's a lot of focus, listen, and discipline. I almost said discipline.
A new word. I like it.
Simplicity.
It's going to be some discipline in here. Listen with discipline. And that's really it, right? And again, this isn't coming from, I've got 5 exits in my, I haven't done this before. I'm going to try this. I think this is what needs to happen. I will report back.
I love it. Christina, this was gold. We do a lot of these, as do you. I think there was so much knowledge dropped for founders here. Knowledge for us, while it's a services business, like we're both new founders as well. And I think you certainly provided me with a few tidbits of how to run and grow a company and just think about leadership in general. Let's do some quick rapid fire.
Definitely got to work on the culture. You got to work on the culture around here.
Absolutely.
Step
quick
one.
rapid fire before we let you go. Here's the rules. 10 words or less. Otherwise, Dale has a special gong that pops out of the computer. It's a new feature in Riverside. Super cool.
Very cool.
But here we go. All right. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
If you weren't in tech, what profession would you be in?
Film.
Ooh.
Of course. Acting.
Not specific to Luster, but as a whole, one word to describe your startup journey.
Shiny.
Luster is not going to say that. Ambitious.
Oh, I like that.
What's the first app you check when you wake up in the morning?
LinkedIn.
All right. Here's a good one. Where do you start first, marketing or sales?
Ooh. Early on, they're the same thing.
Okay. I like it. That could be a whole
That's
nother
less than 10
episode.
words. I was going to say, if we want to pull that thread in a later episode, I could just geek out over it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Last one. What's your dream vacation destination?
Oh, Paris.
Have you been?
In a sigh.
I have never been. I have to go over 10 words, but it won't take that long. It's been I am a big lover of fashion, design. It is secretly you if you walk in my closet, your head will probably explode. It's so irresponsible, but I love it so much. And for my entire life, I've always wanted to go to Paris. And there has always been these big life events, some wonderful, some not so wonderful, that have just gotten in the way. And it's been this one thing that has eluded me. I've never been able to go to Paris, and it's been my dream. And so I'm just like, one day I'm going to make it to Paris for a vacation. So there you go.
I love it. Christina, thank you so much for joining. Obviously, people could find you on LinkedIn. Where could they learn more about Luster?
Because she checks the app first thing
she does.
So
it's those notifications hit hard. If you go to www.luster.ai, luster.ai, you can learn all about us and have fun on the website. We tried to make it full of super little sparkly jemmy jams for everybody. So enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. We appreciate it. And I am going to check out the website right now.